Okay, so ladies, for those who are in polygyny, have you ever came across a point in your life where you say, you know what, if I would have known this, I would have done something different? Or, I wish I would have known this. They always say hindsight is 2020. There's been so many things that I wish I've known, and hopefully the things that I tell you in this video will help you out, will help you to understand, yourself. Because what I'm going to tell you is not going to be about the other person. It's going to be about that inner work.
Warning, what you're about to hear may challenge your beliefs, confront your excuses, and expose where your frame may be weak. Good, because comfort doesn't build leaders. Truth doesn't follow trends, and legacy was never meant for the crowd. Our content is made for men and women who value truth over trends, structure and substance over style, and legacy over likes. If that speaks to you, welcome to Outstanding Personal Relationships. I'm Coach Nyla. Let's get it.
Assalamu alaikum, peace. It's your coach, Coach Nyla, one of the co-founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships, as well as co-author of the book, Let's Talk Polygamy Uncensored. Now, I was chilling one day and I was like, you know what? If I would have known these things, like we've created so many different things with Outstanding Personal Relationships, with the polygamy assessments and the our playbooks and different things like that, our coaching programs, that I thought about it. Just sometimes you got to take a step back. Sometimes you have to take a step back and say, what would it look like if I didn't know the things that I know now? And sometimes you just really seriously got to go back because you didn't know the things that you didn't know, or that you do know. And a lot of times when we're coaching and we're teaching, it's not that we're teaching from where we are now. We do understand what it looked like back then. However, I started thinking about what would I have done differently? What would I have done differently if I knew the things, or I had the tools that we are creating, that we have created for our clients, for those who follow us, the YouTube channels and different things like that? What would that have looked like? Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. If I would have taken the polygamy assessment, I was trying to think about, if I took the polygamy assessment, what would it have looked like for me back then when I first started polygyny? And if I would be really honest with the answers that I would have given myself, I would have seen myself probably at a C3 or so. And I almost sound like a Star Wars character, right? C3 or so. Anyway, those who know. But that's pretty much the cynical. And because I was that person, like I was the person that was wondering if it was some ulterior motive to why people were doing what they were doing. And not everybody, mainly men. That was what it was. So marriage was not, and I talk about it in a number of videos, marriage was not the top of my radar because I was raised by a single mother who was raised by a single mother. And I've seen a number of different things happen in my familial life where, my auntie, who's no longer with us, she was abused by, her guy who she was with, the father of her four of her oldest children, and different things like that. And she got away from it and had a better life. So alhamdulillah, that's a good thing. However, I seen that as a kid, growing up, watching that. This is my favorite auntie, to deal with those things. And then, my grandmother had her issues and my mom had her things that she was going through. And like I said, I was raised by single women, single mothers. And so when I looked at that, I didn't look at it at a point where it's like, oh yes, I want to get married, I want to have children. Now, I wanted to have children because I am a motherly person. I'm the oldest of 9 children, and I love helping out. I love doing things. And I remember asking my mother as a young teenager, can I have children and kick the guy to the curb? I asked her that. And she was like, why would you want to do that? Like, that's crazy. She's like, yes, you could, but that's crazy. Why would you want to do that? And I realized that thinking that I had back then, it was because of what I seen in the pretty much the ideas that I had from it that I just garnered from it. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what it looked like. So this is what it means to me. And that's what made sense to me. But I noticed that mentality of that teenage girl, that young teenage girl, caused some issues in my relationships as I got older. And mind you, I'm a convert. Or what they say, revert in Islam. So I wasn't raised Muslim. So, and I was raised in the West. So the whole boyfriend girlfriend thing, all that other stuff ran rampant. So different things like that. I remember telling my sister, one of my younger sisters, that boyfriend girlfriend stuff is not it. It ain't worth it. And this was me after, finding Islam. This was after really growing and learning things and being married and all that other stuff. So it took a long time. However, I knew that stuff before, but you have to get out of the hurt. You got to get out of the pain. You got to get out of a lot of the things. So even going into marriage, even going into my first marriage, it was things that I had in my past that I needed to work on. There was things that my husband at the time needed to work on. It just didn't work out. We did not work out at all. Then going into my marriage into polygyny, there's still things I needed to work on. I was a cynical person, even going into polygyny. I was a cynical person because, I was thinking other things. I was thinking of, well, if you have, you have this wife, then what do you need me for? Why am I here? Why? It was all this other, it was these other things. So it was not only just the cynical, but it was also having that part where you have the echo chamber. So whatever other people were saying, I was taken in. I was taken in the things like, oh, well, you're just some other person. You're not, this is the real wife and you're not this. So all these other things were really messing with my self-esteem. And it caused issues in my marriage. And I really wish that I knew those things. I knew that this is how I would react, or this is how I would respond, or this is what I just wish I knew those things. How would you know how you would respond? You really wouldn't, but at least if you had some people who went through it or knew what was going on, or like I said, they've been through it, or they grew through it, or they were going through the different things and going through the motions and taught you these things, or giving you the roadmaps, or giving you, well, can you handle these situations? Can you handle these scenarios? At least I would have been equipped, right? At least I would have been equipped. I would at least know that, oh, this is what I would have an issue with if I was being honest with myself, because that's important. Being honest with the answers. If I was able to take that quiz, and if you want to take that quiz, I want you to take that quiz because I want you to let me know what you think your answer is, or what you think your level is, and then what your level really was. Because I'm like, would I have thought my level would be a C3 cynical? I don't know. But if I was being honest with myself and really looked at how I was behaving, I may have argued it because I'm that type of person. I would argue. I'd be like, well, this is why. And no, I wouldn't be a sin because that's only with some people, However, if I would have known that and seen it and said, okay, well, this is what I need to work on. This is before I get married, or as I'm going through this, I can talk to my husband about this. I can communicate with him like, you know what? This is what I'm going through. This is what I've experienced. This is those type of things that has happened to me where I think it has affected me in this particular way. And now, he can have the choice like, okay, do I really want to deal with this? Or, do I understand that, we all have some things that we need to work on, and she's willing to work on it. Now, I've always been a person that has wanted to work on things. I'm like this overachiever. I've been that way since as long as I can remember. So I am a type of person that I would take responsibility for the things that I do, for the things that I have done and the things that happen in my life. I take responsibility for that. And that has been that's been a part of me. I'm happy about that. And I don't just say that to brag and be like, oh, I'm just so great like that. No, Allah allowed that for me. Allah gave me that gift. So I'm grateful for that. And I'm pleased about that. However, knowing where you are is very important, especially when it comes to relationships with other people, especially when it comes to marriage. Somebody who is going to invest in you, invest their time, invest their energy, invest their finances, those different things like that. That's important. And you need to know the same thing. You need to know what it is that you will tolerate, what it is that triggers you, what it is, those type of things, because can you follow this person? Will you follow this person? Or are you of the mindset that I don't need to follow anybody? Because that's important too. Real quick, if somewhere in this video you thought, she's talking about me, it's okay. I would like for you to sit with that for a bit, because so many women in polygyny are holding it together on the outside and they're falling apart on the inside. I know that. I was there. You don't have to stay there. I put everything I know about going through and growing through that season into 3 books. And the Women's Polygamy Book Bundle contains those books that are designed to help you find your center, to stop the comparison spiral, and start showing up in your marriage from a place of strength instead of survival. Make sure you get your bundle at growwithcoachnyla.com. That's important for both of you, because it will not work if you cannot work together. I remember John Gottman, or the Gottmans, they were talking about relationship problems or marriage problems will not be a thing if the husband and wife realized that they were on the same team. And there were times before where I did not feel like we were on the same team. And a lot of that had to do with what I experienced back in the day, or what I experienced throughout my life, or what I watched people that I love experience. And my husband had to deal with it. Like, he didn't have to deal with it, but I mean, when I say he had to deal with it, he had to deal with it because he did deal with it. Now he had to, like, okay, well, just deal with it. No. And I appreciate him for that, because it was a lot to deal with. And he's not just dealing with things coming from my end. He's dealing with things that was coming from my co-wife's end too. So to be able to do that is a great thing, even though he talks about the issues that he had and things that he wish he would have known and everything like that. We've all had those things. We all have those things. So please don't feel bad if you're going through the motions, if you're going through some things that you don't really understand. But what I do suggest you do is take the polygamy assessment. Find out where you are. And it's not just for polygamy. I promise you, like, it probably have some questions in there that's related to polygamy. And if you're not in polygamy, that's fine. But it will still help you try to understand who you are right now, what it is that you may need to work on, what may actually trigger you. As I stated before, if I would have known that, if I would have had those things, it would have been a lot different. Meaning that it wouldn't have been, a lot of the issues that was going on, leadership issues, meaning that, when I say leadership issues, is me wondering, like, okay, should I follow you? Should I not follow you? Because I'm the oldest of 9 and I was a single mother and I was raised by a single mother and I'm the boss, type of thing. I can make my own money. I don't really need, I want you, but I don't need you type of thing. That's not a good, energy to bring into a marriage. It's just not that I was just so blunt like that and blatant like that, but you could feel the energy if that's what it is, or you hear him say something and then you're like, oh, well, whatever. I don't like what he said, or I don't, I'm not going to listen to him, or I'm not going to do these things. I go into this thing about the bodyguard. I told my daughter we're going to watch it because someone was talking about how every time she didn't listen to the bodyguard, this is her bodyguard who was trying to do everything to keep her safe. Every time she didn't listen to him about the things that kept her safe, she was in danger. So that's the type of thing. If we're, choosing our husbands and, and they're choosing us and things like that, and we're like, this is a man that this is the man that's going to be the man. He's going to be a man. He's going to be the protector, the provider, the maintainer, this type of thing. And if that's the case, then I need to know, like, what does that look like for me to follow him, to follow his leadership, to submit to his leadership, to submit to that umbrella of protection and provision that I'm given by him. So yeah, it's important. And us saying that as being a feminine woman and really understanding what that looks like in your frame. Like I said, if I want to know those things, frame, feminine, femininity. I told you I looked the part. I could look the part all day long, but the energy that I exuded, like, okay, yeah, I can walk cute and all this other stuff, but the energy of like, well, you can't tell me what to do, or I'm my own woman, and this, which is true. You're your own woman. That's great. But relationships are relationships, and how we handle ourselves within them, that can tell us if it's going to grow, if it's going to blossom, or if it's going to die. So being able to know that, what my femininity level looked like. And that was all around the board, that it wasn't just the outer appearance, but what was that inside of me? My respect level. Was I respectful? The R in frame. Was I respectful? How respectful was I? And the affectionate, admiring, was I doing that? Was I being affectionate? Was I being admiring? Was I like, oh, well, I'm giving you something, you need to give it back to me, or I'm giving it to you only so I can get something back in return? Maturity. How mature was I? You tell me something, am I going to blow up? Am I going to get automatically insulted? And I had that before, where it's not that it wasn't that I would blow up, but I'll get insulted. And the way it was is like, okay, well, I'm going to tell you how I feel, or you're going to get the silent treatment from me, or I don't need to listen to you, or that type of thing. And it wasn't a mature way of handling the situations. And exclusivity. What did that look like? Was I bouncing around this person? And I wasn't a person that bounced around like that. I didn't do that. If you were my guy, you were my guy. And that's how that was. However, like I stated before, that stuff, when it comes to how I was raised, not how I was raised, but what I grew up in the West, growing up in the West, that boyfriend, girlfriend thing, it doesn't matter, because you're like, okay, you're girlfriend, boyfriend one day and 1 week, and then next week you not boyfriend, girlfriend no more. And then you're feeling the type of way. And then some people, they like, oh, well, I just jump to the next person because they're so hurt inside. Now, I didn't really do that, but it was like, it still bothered me over and over and over again, whether I was dumped, or whether, I had to, this ain't the right person to be with and everything like that. But it's like, you're giving so much of your energy and so much of yourself, instead of being exclusive and being so caring of your own self, to say, you know what, one of these days I'm going to be able to really be exclusive and give myself to somebody who really is deserving of it, and who's going to do the same to me and do the same for me. So knowing those things. So hopefully, you understanding where you are in the frame, how you operate within that. What are you looking like in your spectrum, on the spectrum levels? So make sure you take that quiz and let me know in the comments what your level was. And this is no, shade, or not to judge or anything like that. It's like, oh, okay. Because it's always a starting point. You don't have to score high on it to be the best. The thing is that you know where to start. And if you know where you want to go, you're going to work towards that. Okay. So how you'll find that quiz, go to polygamyquiz.com, take that quiz. I would love to see your scores underneath. Don't be scared. It's all right. So like I said, I was a C3 when I started. I know that's what it would be, what it is. And I'm much higher now. So, and continuing to work on myself to get to that C7 level. I'm not there yet. I'm gonna be real with you. I'm not there yet, but that's what I'm working to do. So, we can do that stuff together. So I look forward to speaking with you. I look forward to seeing what your scores are. And I hope this video gave you some insight and helped you understand some things, because I'm a type of person that looks at things and say, you know what? If someone is telling me something, maybe I should listen, because I don't want to bump my head on my own. Like, if somebody already bumped their head, I don't need to do the same thing, just to be like, oh yeah, that's right. That hurts. Somebody touched a burning stove or a hot stove. I don't need to touch that stove too. I'm like, oh yeah, wow, that's hot. So maybe you learn some lessons from my mistakes. and you won't have to make the same. So I look forward to talking to you and seeing you on the next video. Make sure you are growing intentionally, loving fearlessly, and connecting on a higher level every single day. It's your coach, Coach Nyla. See you later. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.